Muthoni, Lily, we're now live.
Great. Hi, guys. I hope you're all
Everybody,
well. Hi. I wonder how many we are now on the call. Let's see. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you all here. Um, it's a great Saturday afternoon. The sun's out here in Nairobi. I hope you're warm and happy wherever you are joining us from. I'm just taking a peek at the the stream to see how many we are so far. Lily, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Dori, and I'm very, very excited for this session. It's one that has been requested from our viewers, and we want to thank the 4 people who are currently watching right now, and I'm sure we'll get a few people streaming in as we go ahead. So yeah, I'm super excited. We have a great 2 panelists who will be walking us through this, very senior, very seasoned professionals. So I'm sure we will get a lot of learnings.
Indeed, I am so excited. For those of us who are joining the channel for the first time, welcome to Mshauri Careers. We are a social platform that started in July last year. We're celebrating 1 full year. We develop content for the African professional and the professional working in Africa. And this content is very much career development centered. We realize that there are many voices contributing to the career topics that are really irksome to the young people who are developing their careers in this season. And we wanted to weigh in. Lily and I have close to 20 years experience combined, and we didn't want to keep that to ourselves. So we decided, why don't we just hop on to the social media platform? Let's start a YouTube channel. Let's go to LinkedIn. Let's go to YouTube. Let's go to Instagram and share what we know. And hopefully it will be able to help someone make better career choices and win in their career. My name is Modoni, better known as M. If you've watched our channel, we love creating content that's engaging and interactive. My background is HR. I'm a generalist by trade, so I do more or less everything in HR, from hiring to training to employee relations to employee engagement. And this is a passion that I have a strong attachment to. Lily, if you can introduce yourself.
Great, thanks, Donnie. So if you've never watched us before, my name is Lily, but also known as Elle. Unlike Mudani, I have a different sort of path as well. As much as I am in HR, I am a recruitment specialist. So my focal point lies in recruitment. I have worked in different sectors, consulting, I've worked in-house, recruited against various sectors, financial services, FMCG, and currently now I am in the not-for-profit sector. And yeah, I'm excited to jump in. And one thing myself and Em always says, we're not specialists in everything. So we like to bring on board guests like today who can give us their insights. And as Mudoni mentioned, continue to share these insights that can help you grow and can help you get to the best state of yourself.
Indeed. Yes, Lily. So today you're tuned in to listen to, engage in, and learn about career progression, and more so, what gender has to do with it. We did a poll earlier this year on LinkedIn, and we asked professionals, what are these things that really bug you about the workplace, so that we can create content that is really relevant to you. And on your screen, you'll see just what we found out. Should pop up shortly. But amongst everything that we asked, career progression and workplace politics were almost tied in terms of need. So we decided to pick career progression and unpack it even more. And by unpacking, I mean we created a whole career progression series. We just didn't want to do one YouTube video and give you a textbook framework on how to handle career progression, because you can find that out for yourself on Google anyway. We decided to go out there, look at our networks, share these concerns with the people we know who have run the race, have won the t-shirt, have done the commercial, as they say, and bring them on the channel so that you can get real life examples of how really career progression works and what you can pick to apply to yourself. So last month, we started the series and we talked about how to shift careers. You can check out that video after you watch this live. It's so entertaining. It's so fun. We had a seasoned career coach join us. Today, we have two young African leaders who have been winning in their own fields and they really understand career progression. But we wanted to get perspectives on the gender bit. And we will be talking about workplace sponsorship when it comes to the workplace and how it works in the dynamic of being a man or a woman. You know, what is workplace sponsorship anyway? You'll get to know that today. We'll also talk about networking. You know, what does networking really entail? Does it disadvantage women in some way? Are men better placed in networking, especially after work? How is COVID-19 affecting these dynamics? We'll get to learn that. Then my favorite topic, dress code. We'll get to look at what these amazing professionals feel about the dress code and whether it ever had a place in the workplace to begin with, and whether women should dress a certain way to be taken seriously. Should men dress a certain way? Does hair color have anything to do with anything? We'll unpack that. And we'll touch on the stereotypes of work. Are some jobs meant for men? Are some meant for women? From our own experiences, what is the truth? And what then can we share with you so that you can just have a better time at the workplace? So these are some of the topics we'll touch on today. Please share your insights and what you have experienced as a man, as a woman in the workplace, the lessons you've learned, the myths that have been debunked, the challenges you've overcome. Please share them in the comment section. Ask questions. The professionals we have on board today are amazing. Ask them things that you wish they would share more of. Let us know. Ask us anything that really comes up. It comes to mind when it comes to this whole gender discussion. Let us know. We will address them as we go along. Yeah. So on to the next part of this live. Lily, where are you? Can't see you.
I'm right here, Mdoni, and thank you for that introduction. And I want to thank the 16 people that are watching. And I've seen a couple of people who've stayed tuned. Selena, Brian, Keith, thank you so much for taking the time to watch us today. And as mentioned, please keep asking your questions in the chat box, and at the end we will have a specific segment just for Q&A. So just keep on putting in those questions. So without further ado, I want to sort of bring on board our two guest speakers who can introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about who they are, and then we can kick it off from there. So I want to welcome Gladys Kavuma, who's also known as Jida, and Peter Karanja, who also goes as PK. Over to you, Gladys. Welcome so much.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Mdoni. Good morning, PK, and good morning to everyone who's tuned in on this lovely Saturday morning. I'm so glad the sun's out. Nairobi was a bit not fun. It wasn't fun during the week. So by introduction, my name is Gladys Kavuma. I am an African from Uganda. I like to say that because identity is really important. I consider myself a Pan-African. I consider Africa my home, and that's why I'm living in Kenya right now. I moved about 5 years ago, and I've had plenty of experiences that I will talk about a bit later on, but I'm really glad to be here.
All right, Peter, you're up next. Let's hear a little bit about who you are.
Thank you very much, Lily, and also thank you very much, Muthoni, for this opportunity. Jida, it's always a good opportunity for us to get some time to interact. I'm Peter Karanja, as has been mentioned, a Kenyan currently living and working in Rwanda. I come from a background of technology. My career has metamorphosized over the years from tech to finance to HR, and now running a combination of all three. And I think this is going to be an interesting opportunity to share my background and how I eventually ended up from my early beginnings in the early 2000s to where I am now. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Welcome so much, Peter, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of learnings. So I just want to start with Jida. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your career progression and sort of your life story and, how you've become this, successful Pan-African woman. Over to you, Jida.
Thanks, Lily. I joined my career. I would say my career started way before my corporate career because I worked at a sales desk in my mother's business. I started off as we were probably knee-high. So my first taste of corporate world was 2008 when I joined banking. I never thought I'd join banking, but I had an interest in knowing how money works. And I didn't think that I would stay in banking that long or in financial services. So my career has spanned 3 financial services providers. And in those different financial services providers, I have been lucky enough to move through corporate and investment banking, where I learned a bit more about how business reporting is done. That was my very first role, business reporting, business planning. I then moved into treasury, where this was really exciting. And for most people who remember me then, I was a sales dealer, then thereafter a trader, and I learned plenty of negotiation skills. I looked out at the African currencies, and I must say that I think that's where my love for Africa started, because I had to look across the markets regionally and also on the continent, just to say what's the economics that is making this market move? Why is the currency changing? And I found that really, really interesting. And it taught me how to work with other competing banks, because we were all dealing in the same market, but we each had our personal budgets. So I didn't figure that skill was going to come in handy much later in life, but it did, and it's playing out in my current role. So after treasury, I moved on into strategy and projects, and the move there was something that I did not plan at all. I just knew that I had an interest in knowing how are decisions made at a higher level, at a corporate level, and then how do those then come down to a functional level? Why was I doing what I was doing? And that's where my interest in strategy actually came up from. And through strategy and project management, I got really, really interested in how organizations are run, how teams are built. I moved from a specialist to a more general role, which is also something that surprised me, because I thought I was happy in treasury. Then I realized I could be happy somewhere else. And over the years, I could say that I have been able to nail down what makes me good, the skills that have made me good at what I do. I have built up commercial acumen, just understanding how businesses are run, we get down to the bottom line. I have gotten to people management, and one of the happiest moments in my life was when someone I worked with a couple of years ago reached out and said, "Thank you so much for getting me to where I am." So in terms of my skills, I have been able to build, right now I could say I'm a strategy and business development executive, primarily in financial services, and recently moved into the fintech space, which I'm truly excited about, because it is what is driving the the growth in Africa. Yeah, I could say that's about in terms of my career progression. Those are the areas that I've covered.
Thank you so much, Jida,
yeah,
for
that's amazing.
elaborate. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You said something quite interesting that piqued my mind. You said over the years you've learned sort of what you're good at. You've talked about the commercial acumen, talked about getting into management. What are some of the unique things that you've done to be successful? You've mentioned sort of identifying where you're strong. Is there any other advice you would give people listening in, like Maureen, who's just glad to join in, that would help them sort of propel them up the ladder?
Lily, that's a fantastic question. I keep asking myself that as well, because, as you keep progressing, you need to be alive to the fact that what got you to where you got to may not necessarily sustain you there. But there are three things that I can keep falling back on. One, I am a natural adventurer and a bit of an adrenaline junkie. So that has allowed me to take so many risks. I'm a risk taker. I have been able to move through careers. I'm not afraid to say, I don't know. If there's something that you want figured out, give it to me. I feel no shame in not knowing and and in failing, because I'll only fail once or not know once, right? So I'll give it a shot and keep going. The other thing that I've done that I've been able to do is just be intentional. And being intentional in terms of aligning my personal values, my personal interests with my professional interests. We spend way too much time at work not to align what we're interested in with what we do on a day-to-day, Monday to Friday. So I like meeting people. I like exposure. So I've always looked for roles that make it easy for me to show up as well.
Well, that's a great segue to a question that now takes us to the heart of the discussion we're having today about gender. Jida, have you found that there are things that you as a woman have had to worry about more than your male counterparts?
Where to start? Let me just put it out there that there's really no winning. So let's just start with that. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. And as a woman, I have been in places where either you're too hard. You're not like a woman, you're not like a woman, you're too hard. And say, okay, so what do you mean I'm too hard? Or you're too soft. Like too soft on what measurement? Based on what, really? When I was 25 years old, I was told, maybe you're too ambitious. And I was told that this by a lady. And I've asked myself, is there such a thing as being too ambitious because I'm a woman? Would a 25-year-old man be told the same? And of course, there are other things that I worry about. Am I getting paid right? Are you paying me for the role, or are you paying me because I'm a female? And I don't think men ever really have to think about that.
Well, let's ask the man that we have on. Where is Peter? Peter. It's your turn to tell us more about you, Peter. We want to know about your career progression, what has made you successful, and rope in what Jida has said about things that she feels makes men more advantageous at the workplace than women. Don't know what you think.
Okay, so I think I'll just start by sharing a bit of a history of where my career started. Unlike Jida, I started off in technology. That's my actual background. I'm an IT professional by trade, and I started off my career in Mombasa, interestingly, where I was an IT assistant, doing all the manual things that could be done in the organization. I think many people in the IT field can resonate with that quite a bit. When you're starting off, you're just the IT guy, right? And I was able to evolve that and narrow down my interests more into programming, where then I joined our national carrier as a software developer, and I think I really enjoyed that particular role, being able to create, being able to innovate, being able to create insights and show information to different stakeholders in different times. But it's also at that point that a bit of my career then pivoted, because I'm generally a people's person, and so through that, I was able to change from being a hardcore software developer to being more of a business analyst. So stereotypically, many software developers are introverted by nature, and I'm a real extrovert. And so a good number of the leaders that I had at the time thought of it as an opportunity to make me like the face of the function or the face of the department, going out into meetings, understanding people's requirements, and bringing them and translating them into things that then could be coded into different types of dashboards, different types of systems. And so from that specific angle, I then shifted into the financial services sector, where I spent a good chunk of my career, primarily in the project space, developing and implementing different kinds of projects. And while in that specific space, running and managing the innovation function of one of our leading banks in the country, in Kenya, I then pivoted even further into strategy and finance. And that was a very interesting shift for me, because it was at a time when the organization wanted to hypothesize what a future alternative direction for the organization would have looked like. And so the CEO at the time put together a team of 3, where I was fortunate to be one. And an interesting thing happened. Gladys, or Jida, who's a panelist here, was a member of that team. And by nature, the expectation was that she would run the finance components of that particular team, which she chose not to. And that then opened up the window for me to learn, window for me to fail, window for me to try again. And I think I essentially ended up with a 1-year crash course in how to be a strategic financial manager, strategic financial expert. And then that pivoted me even further when we went into implementation, when I had to then get into a component of something that we eventually called an EVP, the employee value proposition. And so I then had to learn a lot more about what interests employees in an organization, what are the things that make them want to be part of your team, what are the things that make them want to stay with you. And it's through that background that I then shifted altogether back into my, what I'd call my core, going back into the technology space, where I then was a member of a team of engineers. And my role there was primarily focused on the financial component and also the experience component of the engineers, where I was able to figure out how we can attract new talent, how we can maintain that new talent, and how we can just generally grow the business. And so something that I've probably failed to mention in that transition between banking and getting back into the tech world is through that transition from projects into strategy and then back into the finance world, I got to learn a lot about how business runs, right? How to interpret the business needs and how to serve those needs and how to make sure that we have efficiency created in the system. And so that then led me into where I am now. As an operations director, where I run the finance function, the HR function, and the organizational excellence functions of my current organization. And it's been a learning journey. It's been an interesting journey. It's been one that I can't trade for anything. And I think I'm still learning, still growing. And I'm glad to share any more insights as you'd like to learn and hear about from me.
Well, thank you so much, PK, for that introduction. And I think what I've gotten from you is just keep on learning, keep on pushing the envelope, put yourself in situations that might not necessarily be in your comfort zone. And I know just recently we just asked Jida on what sort of are some of the things she has to consider as a female. I want to pivot this around and talk about gender stereotyping in roles and your thoughts there. Have you encountered gender stereotyping, and what are your thoughts on workplace equality? And I'll just throw that to you and hear, your experiences and in that area.
That's a fantastic question, and I think it's one that's really alive in the world today, because I think one of the interesting things about our strive as an individual and also as the organization that I'm currently leading is how to have a lot more diversity and inclusion in the organization. And so that, of course, resonates a lot from the stereotypes that have generally permeated the social fabric or the professional fabric over the years, where traditionally the HR people are generally ladies. Unfortunately, even as we sit here, we see like that stereotype continues to perpetuate itself with yourself and with only being ladies. But I think when I think about how I look at how we make this a more equitable equation in the workplace, it starts by, in my opinion, and the things that I've intentionally done, is by recognizing that the stereotypes exist, and by recognizing and appreciating that we are perpetuators, even in small ways, in those stereotypes existing. Right? We have to be very cognizant of the biases that we have. I think there are many trainings and there are many exercises that people do that make them aware of their own biases. And I think the more awareness we have of those biases, the easier it is for us to dissociate ourselves from the biases altogether and to strive for better equality, better inclusion and diversity in the organization.
Thank you so much for that, Peter. We'll dive deeper into your views on gender as we segue into this next part. Now, let's talk about workplace sponsorship. I know the word sponsor is controversial in Kenya, but we have a global audience tuned in. So we would like to educate our viewers today about workplace sponsorship and the role it plays in the direction that your career will take, right from when you join as an intern to when you end up as a CEO, if that's your dream. Now, I'd like to call Gladys back into this discussion because I know this is a topic that's very close to her heart. And I'd like to pose this question directly to you, Gladys. You've worked in South Africa, you've worked in Uganda, you've worked across the continent, really, and you've handled projects that are cross-cutting. And you're a young woman. You've grown very quickly. Educate us. What role has workplace sponsorship played? Heck, what even is workplace sponsorship? And how can we use it to our advantage?
Thanks, Muthoni. And yes, sponsorship is something that we do not speak about enough, workplace sponsorship, that is. And basically, if we're just to start off, sponsorship is when having someone who can stand up for you or who drives your case when you're not there, or as someone who supports your career and actually drives it in the right directions. So there's a whole spectrum. There's an entire spectrum of levels, different levels of sponsorship. And we have mentorship at the very bottom. We've got mentorship at the very bottom, and right at the top, you have a proper sponsor, someone who can actually go knock on someone's door and say, look, I know Gladys, I know she can do 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think you should give her this opportunity. So when you look at that spectrum, there's always, and if you do read, once it comes up, fantastic, an advocate. So if looking at this sponsorship matrix, I'm sure we can all place ourselves at some point or know people who have driven our careers at a particular point, either as a mentor, providing advice, support, or coaching, or a strategizer, someone who can tell you about an upcoming project and how to get there, a connector, someone who introduces you to the right people and who can actually then go and tell someone else about me. Then the opportunity giver basically now exposes you to, say, the C-suite, exposes you to the C-suite, or about an upcoming project or program that will elevate you in the organization, or an advocate, and that's the highest one. What you'd really want to have is as many advocates as possible. So in my career, I've had different people across in each organization doing this for me. I've had mentors. And those are still current in my life. I've had connectors, and these are the same connectors who've opened up opportunities for me and told me, look, there's this project that's going to be run in this country. If you want it, perhaps you should speak to so-and-so and find out a bit more about it. And then, of course, there are advocates who have looked at me and known, who I've had conversations with, who've understood my ambitions, who have understood the value I've brought to different organizations, and they've been able to basically fight for me when I'm not in the room. So when we talk about sponsorship, it is not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing at all. In fact, all leaders, if you have a position of power or influence, you should be looking at how to sponsor high potential professionals in the organization. Of course, the high potential professionals, please give the sponsors something to work with. You must be a performer. You must be clear about your career. You must be clear about your ambitions. You must be clear about where you want to go and what value you bring to the table. And you should be able to ask for it. You should be able to walk to someone and say, this is my interest. Could you please help me do 1, 2, 3, introduce me to so-and-so, or this is the project that I'm interested in. And as a woman, really, yes, women do need sponsorship. They don't get enough of it. They don't know how to ask for it. And I like it that men are usually in the position, unfortunately, the world that we live in, men are actually still the most influential in most organizations. And men should learn how to sponsor both men and women equitably. Mudhoni, over to you.
Yes. Okay. So I'll ask our technical team to bring up the image again that shows the spectrum of sponsorship. I have a question for you regarding it. There we go. Okay. So this is an excellent framework that you've introduced to us here, Gladys. I hope our viewers are taking screenshots or bookmarking this video, because for me, it's blowing my mind. Okay, so when I look at mentor, strategizer, connector, opportunity giver, this is on the provision. It's the language is more what the workday sponsor does. So they provide advice, they share insider information, they make introductions, they provide a high visibility, publicity advocate, they fight for you when you're not in the room. This is nice, everyone wants this. But back to, okay, technical team, you can remove the image now so I can see Gladys's face. There you go. So Gladys, you have been a beneficiary of such sponsorship, right? What is this that you've done that you feel made you that much easier to be recognized for sponsorship? And talk directly to someone who's just joining the workplace, please.
Thanks, Mudhoni. I have always tried to own the space that I'm in. If you give me a job, I will do my job, and I will do it well, and I will do extra. I don't stop at do 1, 2, 3. I come up with how much more can I do. So over my career, I have been a performer. And part of being a performer is fully doing knowing fully what I am supposed to deliver, what else can give value to my employer and to my boss, and also being able to articulate what did I do. Many of us don't know how to say, this was my contribution. This is what I did. This is how I did it. You need to be able to, don't be too humble. Don't be too humble. And that has helped, because when at any opportunity, if I meet someone I know could possibly influence the direction of my career, I'll walk up to them. What do I have to lose anyway? They may think maybe she's a bit cuckoo, but it's fine. All I have to do at that point is step up to them, tell them, this is my plan, this is where I want to get to, this is what I've done. Are you able to do 1, 2, 3 for me? But really, if you're not performing, if you don't have clarity on your own goals, if you don't know what you want to end up doing, then even a sponsor finds it hard to help you get to where you need to get to.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Jida. So what I've gotten from that is you have to be intentional. You have to know what you want. You have to know what you're bringing to the table. And you have not to be afraid and be bold and ask for assistance. And at this moment, I want to segue a little bit into another topic that's sort of closely linked, and this is networking. So I want to bring PK back in, and we can chat a little bit about the importance of networking. How is this a disadvantage to women, the networking that happens in the workplace? What are your experiences that you've seen when it comes to networking? So back to you, PK. Sorry, PK, I believe you're on mute.
Sorry for that. So thanks, Lily, for the opportunity again. And I remember as we were coming up with this particular piece of the conversation, one of the things that I kept remembering was that I'm generally an extrovert. And so I need to make sure that I'm able to share my thoughts and opinions in a balanced way, sharing my experiences and seeing how this could be either disadvantageous to extroverts or introverts, men or women. But I'll just start by sharing a bit of insight about what generally networking is all about. So stereotypically, networking is always defined as the art of meeting and engaging with new people and being able to articulate either the issues that are being discussed at that particular forum or the issues that you would like to discuss in that particular forum. But I'd like to broaden it a bit and say that networking is not just about how we meet and engage with new people, but it's also how we cultivate the relationships that we have with our current network communities, whether it's the people that you work with, the people that you socialize with, the people that you engage with in different circumstances. So on a personal level, I've had the opportunity to lead and participate in different networking opportunities at different points in my career. And just to dig further into instances when the networking efforts may have been a disadvantage or an advantage to different groups of people, I'd probably talk a bit about certain times in my career where I led evening-based networking events where a lot of the interaction was supposed to happen after hours. And progressively over the course of my career, I've come to acknowledge and accept that there's different ways that such situations can be handled. Whenever you choose to have, for example, evening hangouts or evening networking opportunities, you always find that probably people with young families, people who have dependents waiting for them in their various homes, and who are generally most of the time stereotypically women, either have to leave earlier or have to be pressed for time and don't have the same opportunity to engage. And so what I have done as at a personal level is try and even out those networking opportunities. I know there are instances where in my career, I've chosen to have like lunch meetups, which are a little more neutral and allow for everyone to have similar opportunities for interaction, creating spaces even within general team meetings and making sure that you've put aside some time for people to know each other, for people to know each other's strengths and not just focus on this is what I do on a day-to-day basis. Because again, networking is an opportunity for people to share what can they do over and above what you know them for or what they're known for. Right. So I think that's what I'd probably just want to put out there, that there are many ways that networking can happen. It can happen either, as I said, by meeting new people. It can also happen by cultivating the relationships that you currently have. I'm happy to deep dive sorry, into any more examples if you would like me to share a bit more about my experiences, when it worked well, when it did not work well, what I've learned. Over to you. I'm keen to hear where you like the conversation to go.
Thanks, PK. Thanks so much. So I have one question on mind, and I can see Muthoni is also itching to ask you a couple questions. And mine more so is on COVID-19 and how, in this day and age, before networking traditionally was like we meet at place X or, there's a gathering at place Y. How are you able to maintain networking, or what are some of the ways you can network during this sort of pandemic where we are self-isolating and not necessarily interacting with people on a face-to-face basis?
That's an interesting question, Lily, because what COVID has taught us is that there are many ways that different things can be achieved, right? A lot of interpersonal connectivity has been curtailed, social distancing and all. And I think one of the interesting things that we learned is during COVID-19, we all were assumed to have more time for ourselves and for our families because of lockdowns. But also, I think I also took it as an opportunity to cultivate the relationships that already existed. So within the different organizations that I've worked in, and I've had the pleasure of being in quite a number of different organizations and sectors in the economy, I chose to deliberately focus a lot more on existing forums, existing relationships and friendships that I've had. I've had quite a number of groups where we have chosen to challenge ourselves and read more, learn more, share more. And through these opportunities, I think I've been able to still keep those networks and connectivities alive. One of the interesting things that I can also share is at the time that the pandemic hit, many people did lose their jobs, and I was one of the people who was impacted by that. And it was through my networks that I was able to cultivate new opportunities for myself. I was able to reach out, as Jida has said, at certain times when meekness is not the greatest strength that you could have. And I'm not saying that we all have to have the same kind of personality, but I think it was an opportunity when my job situation did go south, that I had to put aside my pride, put aside my ego, reach out to the people that I've worked with, be able to articulate what I've been able to achieve in different organizations, be able to share the value that I would potentially bring into new organizations. And through that, as I've shared in the past, I'm now based in Rwanda, which is a whole different shift. And also now here, I'm learning how to network at a very different level, different experiences that I'm having, not being able to particularly communicate with everyone in the same way that I probably did in the country that I was in, understanding different cultural backgrounds, knowing there are certain things that would be normal to say in Kenya, not normal to say in Rwanda. And I think just that understanding of your different stakeholders, different audiences has really allowed me to grow and learn how to better hone into my expertise of learning and networking.
Yes, I'm on mute. Okay. So, Peter, you have really motivated us in your career journey. You've grown. Again, another very young leader. To all our viewers who know Peter, who don't know him, Peter is a highly skilled person whose talent has just propelled him, and it's not unique to the young viewers who are watching, who are trying to figure out their careers now and thinking, "Oh my, how can I ever get the networks that Peter has?" So we have very little time remaining, but I'd like you to touch on what networking is and what networking isn't. And when you talk about what networking is, if you can emphasize on the things that someone who's just starting out can grab onto, that can really help them know as many people as they can who actually can help them grow. Just about a minute, Peter. You're on mute again.
Sorry about that. I keep forgetting. So that's an interesting question, and I think I'll just lean on my history on networking and how I think I have evolved in that networking journey by sharing a bit of what networking is and what it's not. I think I'll first talk about what it is not. Right, networking, in my opinion, is not being everywhere at the same time, right? It's not being in every forum or in every possible situation that allows you to talk or to engage with people, right? For me, networking is similar to success. It's where preparedness meets opportunity, right? Where you've done a bit of your research, you've done a lot of your homework, and you're in a position to be able to engage with the stakeholders that you're actually interacting with, right? So I've been in situations where I was actually in an opportunity where I was able to travel all the way to Dubai for a networking opportunity. And while there, I realized that I was in a big forum, an IoT forum, and I wasn't ready. I just ended up being in different groups of people staring at them as I spoke and really didn't have much to contribute. And so I spent a lot of my next few hours and days cultivating a lot of what did I want to get out of that opportunity? What are the things that I think made sense for me at that point in my career? I did my homework, I did my research. I made sure that I then met the necessary people and engaged with them at the right level. And also taking it to the next level, I think it's got a lot of reading and learning that goes into enriching the networking experience. I think networking is a lot about sharing. It's not just about listening or about talking. It's about exchanging ideas. And you're in a better position to exchange ideas when you listen better, and also you've gotten the opportunity to learn and educate yourself on the subject matter and be able to richly contribute to what is being talked about.
Wow. That what you've pointed out there is very, very important. Don't take just Lily and Madhoni's word for it, guys. It is groundwork. It sounds like it has a lot to do with you gaining knowledge, and at the point where you're in front of Uhuru Kenyatta, for example, you can share something about public health that is of value because you've put in the time and you researched, so that when the opportunity comes to you, you know what to do. Excellent, Peter. At this point, I'd like to give a big shout out to our viewers. We're so excited that we have over 25. I believe there were 29 at some point. I can see Selena, I can see Mr. Mitugo there, I can see Maureen, Mark, Joseph, Nicholas, Catherine, Shadrach, Joel, Simon. Wow. Shalemaya, is that you? Yeah, our old buddy Jalango is there. It's so exciting that you're all tuned in. Please share your questions. We'll spare some minutes at the tail end of this so that Gladys and Peter can respond to your questions. So please share them. On to our juicy topic. We have such little time. I don't know how it got to 47 minutes into this. Lily, please.
I guess we're just having a great time. And yes, as Budoni said, this is also one of my personal favorites, and this is dress code. What does dress code have to do with it? And I want to pull Gladys Gina back in and ask her, what is her take on dress code? Do you have to dress a specific way to be taken seriously? As someone who might push the boundaries once in a while with my hair color, I'm curious to hear what has your perspective been, and then we can also draw PK back in to hear his thoughts on the same. So, Gina, over to you.
Thanks, Lily. And I love your hair. It gives me so much life. So much life.
Thank you.
As a Ugandan, and I can't talk about dress code without talking about where I'm from and my culture. I am a Ugandan and I am a Muganda. So Baganda women take pride in their appearance. And from the time I was a child, my grandmother and my mother are the best dressers that I know. From the time I was a child, my grandmother said, if you ever walk into a room and it's two of you and there's one chair left, who do you think they'll give that seat to? Who do you think they'll give that chair to? And I grew up just knowing that you have to show up. It's not a choice. If there's one chair left, I want that chair. I'm not going to stand. I want that chair. So when it comes to dress code, really, you're a brand. Show up how you want to be received. Be authentic to yourself, but read your context. Read your context. I want that chair, and I have plans, and I have future plans. So I show up. It's important to know how to dress at the right time and how much you can push the boundaries. Anytime you're joining a new organization, please find out about their culture. Sometimes you're too concerned about how much you'll get paid, what the terms are. Please, friend, find out about the culture. I joined my very first employer. I had a bald head. But I showed up for my interview with my bald head and a suit. So a female with a bald head, but a suit, you know? So that I still showed up. I was pushing it with the hair, and it took a while for people to get used to it. But now I have dreadlocks, and they're colored, and I style them. I keep styling them. I'm authentic to my own style and my brand, but I also know my context. Show up how you want to be received.
You know what, Jida, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think what you've said is absolutely spot on. Reading your context is super important, but also being authentic and understanding what the organization, what are the boundaries you can push. But at the end of the day, if your works speaks for itself, guess what? They'll let you have your blue hair. They will let you keep it. It becomes insignificant to them at the end of the day. PK, do you have any thoughts, or Donnie, any questions you would like to pose?
I'm curious about Peter, especially because you mentioned that now your career is growing towards, looking after multiple functions. The breadth of your control is growing. And as a leader, does the dress code document have a place, or should it be tossed out altogether?
This is a fantastic topic. So I think I'll just start by prefacing that I generally am for comfort, right? But as we've all said, in the past hasn't always been that way, right? I came from a background in banking where the expectation was that we should all be in suits and ties. Right now, I was part of an institution where we really pushed the boundary and chose to push for comfort over the stereotypical assumption of what a banker would look like. And I know Muthoni and I have shared in the past that I think we were ahead of our time, because we really did push the boundary. We really made people feel that they could dress in whichever way they felt most comfortable, as long as they were able to deliver to the best of their capability. Now, at some point, I also cherished the tie and suit, right? And progressively, as I transitioned, when I came from banking into the tech space, it was also a culture shock for myself, because as much as I had evolved what I thought was an evolution, coming from tie and suit to khakis and comfortable shirts, then I went in and found people who are a lot more loosely dressed and a lot more comfortable in their own skin. And I think I've learned and evolved with that thinking and methodology. But one other thing that I'd probably like to mention is it also doesn't hurt to ask, right? As Jida has mentioned, understand the culture of the organization that you're going into, and also just ask, right? If you're going to go into an interview, don't make an assumption that everyone appreciates a dress code in the same way. There are people who are okay with, especially now in this virtual world, that everyone should dress up in a suit or everyone should not dress up in a suit. I still like to wear nice cologne even when I'm going to be on a video call. So it's just about what makes you feel comfortable, what makes you feel good, and what makes you feel productive, right? Some of us enjoy the power suit. Even I'm one of those people in certain contexts. And sometimes we just enjoy being a bit more laid back and creating an environment where people can thrive on the content of their skill and not necessarily what exactly they've put on.
Okay, now this is a question that I have for Lily. I've known Lily for years, and she's always had either red hair, and nowadays I'm seeing more colors coming in. It looks purple on the screen, guys, but it's more blue. So, Lily, what does your hair have to do with anything? Has it ever? And you're a global brand, so has it ever been an issue ever?
So this is what I'll say, Mudhani. When it comes to dress code, it also goes, like you said, beyond your organization. I remember there was a time I was a consultant, and I actually had to be quite intentional about my hair color, because it wasn't necessarily maybe my organization that had an issue, but the clients I was working with. And if I go to a client meeting, and unfortunately for them, that's just a no-go, it reflects negatively on my organization, even though my organization not necessarily have a challenge with it. So as Judah said, you have to read the room. You have to read the room and know what is appropriate. And so when I put this color, obviously it's where I'm most comfortable. And it's actually, a lot of, the people I work with, even now my superiors understand that this makes me comfortable. And I think it's also a shout out to organizations for them to realize that when people say environment, they don't just mean lighting and that there's a kitchen with sugar. If somebody wants and feels comfortable, with dressing like this, and it actually helps them feel happier, they'll actually be more productive. So I think it's a catch-22. You have to be very cognizant, especially if you're working as a consultant dealing with other clients. But I also just encourage organizations to also allow their employees to feel the most comfortable. And now with COVID-19, half the time people from the bottom down, we have no idea what's going on there. And they are out here moving mountains. So, what does dress code have to do with it, right?
And in fact, that last sentence brings us back to Gladys and Peter. What are your parting shots? Bringing us to the topic of the morning. What does gender have to do with career progression? Gladys, does gender have anything to do with it, or is it just in our heads?
In a perfect world, gender should not have anything to do with it. But we're not in a perfect world. We have cultures and traditions and traditional roles and what people have grown up seeing and expecting. Subconsciously, they're people who don't even know that they're gender stereotypes, but that they act out. So yes and no, gender does have something to do with career progression. On the yes part, I pray for all of you that you find a good hiring manager who is able to look beyond gender, because it's always the tone set by the hiring manager, by the organization. Look at the diversity at the leadership team. Look at how when you're in meetings, do the ladies speak up? Are they overpowered by the men? Do they get the same opportunities? And you as a leader, do you give both the males and the females the same opportunities to progress, to advance in their careers? And that's on the yes part. Gender has something to do with it. On the no part, look, you're either good at your job or you're not. And you're either pushing it, you're trying to do better, you're trying to excel, you're trying to do better than yourself. If you're not good at your job, gender should really not come into this picture here. So just whatever it is you're trying to achieve, give it your best. It's only you, and you can only do it as yourself. So I come in, I do it as Jida, in my heels, my perfume, my lipstick. I do it as me, because I'm comfortable, and that's how I will do my job. But parting shots, really, guys, please enjoy your careers. It should not be a straight line. Take a risk. Make that lateral move. Learn something new. Just take a risk. No one else is going to do it for you. And take one opportunity. If you're not yet clear on the next one, take that one. Make it work. The next one will open up. And thank you so much, Mudhoni and Lily. PK, as always.
We'd like to hear from Peter, and I understand we have a question, but let's hear Peter's connection to this as well. His response. Yeah. Peter, does gender have anything to do with it?
I know time is really against us, so I'll be brief, considering Jida has shared very good context about whether or not it does have anything to do with it. And I think I totally agree with her. There are components of career progression that gender does play a part. And speaking generally to leaders in who are tuning in and who are going to watch this, let's all be intentional about the stereotypes and the situations that we face, giving those opportunities for diversity and inclusion, making sure that we're being intentional about measuring how diverse and inclusive our organizations are, but also for the individuals who are trying to grow, for the individuals who are trying to progress in their careers. As Jida said, show up. Right? Be good at what you do. As I said, success is where preparedness meets opportunity. And let's be prepared. Let's always strive to do our best. And one of the things that I live for, and I always keep repeating for myself, is that without commitment, you will never start. And without consistency, you will never finish. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Very, very powerful words there, PK. Thank you both for joining us. As mentioned, we do have a question here from SR Moas. How far is too far when challenging dressing stereotypes in a company? Anyone can take this. Feel free. I see Jida's hand up. Let's go, Jida.
Yes. So when you're joining an organization, you're signing a contract with that organization. That organization will have certain policies that are clearly stated. You must also respect the fact that you have sought employment with this organization that has its own culture, that has decided that this is the brand the organization wants to have. So in terms of challenging the dressing stereotype, I don't know if I'm answering this the right way. You can always get back to me. But if you're challenging the dressing stereotype, you need to first know always your context. What does the policy say? How can you maneuver within that policy? At the end of the day, you've signed a contract. And you've got to respect that. And if you feel that it's not working for you,
just to push that boundary on how far you can challenge that stereotype, considering I've been in that ecosystem, and I know I've worked with Muthoni in the past in pushing those stereotypes in different organizations. I think it's also just thinking through the channels and the stakeholders who need to be influenced. Right? It's not generally about showing up one day in flip-flops and waiting to see who comments or who does not comment. Right? It's just in very many subtle ways starting to bring up that conversation in forums that matter, right? Asking and posing those challenges and saying, does it really matter if my hair is green or red? And getting those responses from the people who matter, the people who've defined those policies that Jida has brought up, and getting their feedback, then being able to share your perspective. Right, so it's not just about being a rebel, but it's about driving conversation and trying to gain consensus. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. As Jida has said, there are some organizations that take a lot of pride in the brand that they've developed, and that has a lot to do with how you show up. But in also certain circumstances, you may be able to successfully challenge those stereotypes and be able to move the needle. It may not get to the point where you can come in a vest to work, but hey, if you're able to drop the tie, that's a win.
Great, thanks so much for that, PK. And thank you both to Jida and PK for joining us. And, you know, we brought them on board because of questions that were posed from you guys. Career progression was one of the key items. So we challenge you to keep on sort of liking our videos, keep on giving us feedback on who you want to, what you want to discuss. So we are able to table these conversations and have fruitful sessions like this. So we also want to thank, I think we got up to 33 people. I see people in the chat. Maureen, thank you so much for your constant support here with us. And Muthoni, I don't know whether you have any parting words, but it's for my gratitude to both Jida and Peter. We really appreciate it. And we continue to do great things and to inspire the youth of today, because that's actually a big of our target market, are people who want to be you tomorrow.
Exactly. This has been great. I can't thank our viewers enough. The ones on the comments, the ones who are not. I can see Joel there, who's been part of this journey with us. Thank you so much. I see William there. I see Terry. I see Derek. I see Jesse. We see you guys, and we really appreciate the time you've spared to be part of this conversation and to take away these insights and gems from these two minds. I don't know where next. Both of them will be on one frame like this, sharing insights. They're really hard to find, very busy individuals, so we don't take for granted that now we have you immortalized on our channel. And anyone who is struggling with gender issues can come here and listen to you and feel inspired. Thank you so much to both of you. And, you know, we can just but say good morning, great Saturday, great weekend. We'll be back with a fresh video next week on Wednesday. We have an interesting set of videos lined up. We can't wait to unveil those. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn on the notification bell, guys. That's the only way you become the first one to know when something's up. Follow us on LinkedIn as well. We're Instagram, we're on Facebook. Keep letting us know, keep sending us those DMs with your questions. It really helps us shape the content that we design for you. Until next time from me, it's bye-bye. Guys, please, your goodbyes to our lovely viewers.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.